let's see. Just make sure that we're plugged in. Oh yeah. Boy. Well, there's nobody. I have to tweet out the link. Well done. Oh, a bit more heat on. Alrighty. Oh, jeez. We'll see if any other people pop in. But for those of you there, Happy New Year. How's it going? Traffic was an absolute nightmare. Ran some errands. Went to go grab lunch. You ever have a person at a drive-through just like seemingly order the entire menu and just take forever? Yeah, that bad Taco Bell experience in the line today. One lady just took forever, man. But you know, that is why we got up a little late, but we are here. We are we're getting ready for the best and worst of 2018. We'll see if anybody else pops in, and then we'll break into some of my favorite moments before we get to the big ones. Let us see. I'm going to step away for 1 second, and more like a minute. Alrighty. All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man. I want to welcome you to a very, very special first live stream of 2019. Happy New Year's, everybody. It is January 1st, and we are getting ready to dive into the C-Man's best and worst of 2018 as we closed out the year last night with New Year's Eve. I might be a little struggling today, so bear with me early as we get going. But to celebrate the new year, I figured why not go through some of my favorite moments of the entire year, as well as my worst movies and best movies of the year. So first place to jump to, let's see, where should we start? Why don't we do? We'll do this one, yeah. So obviously a big part of the channel and something that's been quite popular here has been my trailer reactions. And watching the amount of trailers that I've watched this year, I certainly have a few favorites. And we're gonna do a top 5 here, top 5 favorite trailers of 2018. And first up, honorable mentions. Coming in at the 7th spot, Brightburn, dude. When that dropped a couple weeks ago, I was like fascinated by it, right? Like, I mean, I get that it's basically a Superman story, like very, very, very spot on. I mean, even the trailer itself looks very, very similar to the Man of Steel trailer. But it just captured my imagination. Like, if Superman had come and had everything the same, but he was evil, that would be terrifying. And James Gunn certainly looks like he has crafted something here that is gonna be creepy. And as a superhero fan, man, should be fairly entertaining. Because I mean, we all know the best part of Justice League was bad Superman. So to see like bad kid like Superman without being Superman, obviously, it looks really creepy. It looks like it should be super entertaining, and the trailer itself got me real good. When the kid flies in right at the end of the trailer, I was like, it got me good. If you get me good, you're definitely gonna end up down here in this section. And that brings us to our number 6. trailer, and the number one spot in the honorable mentions. The Toy Story 4 trailer reaction trailer with Key and Peele doing one of their familiar bits, where they talk about movies and they're talking about the trailer that had come out for Toy Story. And the whole thing was just so funny. And considering that we don't get to see Key and Peele together too much these days, to get to watch them do what they did in that trailer was just great. And they're super funny, and certainly something I'm very looking forward to come Toy Story 4. That will bring us into our top 5 favorite trailers of the year. And at number 5, this trailer came out during New York Comic Con when I was in the city. And when I sat down to watch it and found out that this was essentially the extended trailer that people at San Diego Comic Con got, blown away. Aquaman, dude. The Aquaman extended trailer, 5 minutes worth of trailer, was absolutely spectacular. It was one of those things like you just sat there and you watched it and you were like, oh my God, dude, this looks so amazing. And then you see the orange suit and it's stellar. Now, I did say, of course, after seeing Aquaman, I wish they would have held back some, but considering the track record of DC at the time, it made a lot of sense for for them to show a bunch of stuff to try to get people really psyched. And it certainly worked, because Aquaman is crushing it in the box office. It looks like it's on its way to being DC's first billion-dollar movie, which is super exciting. And like I said, that trailer, I mean, that trailer got people. Clearly, and they gave, they had a bunch of pre-screenings. They mixed in a lot of fans with some of the press screenings, and a lot of people were seeing this movie before it came out, and word spread like wildfire. And it all started when that second humongous extended trailer came out. Just all the visuals and everything about it, just so pretty. It was easily something that got me so excited for this movie. That was one I was pumped for, but I was more pumped for Shazam. Clearly, I think Aquaman is one of the best DC's ever put out. And it just blew my mind. It started with that extended 5-minute trailer. Number 4, another superhero trailer. Shocker. The Captain Marvel second trailer, man. When we finally got to see Captain Marvel in action, goodness gracious. I mean, both trailers, fantastic work on both, and just the build. But the second trailer, man, getting to see the mohawk not underwater, getting to see like the mask come off and the hair fall. There were so many shock and awe moments in that trailer, especially at the end, man, when she lit up and she just starts blowing up spaceship after spaceship and twirling, and so pretty. Again, one of those trailers that just captured my imagination in a way I was like, I wish that maybe we hadn't seen that. But knowing Marvel's track record, if we're seeing that, can you imagine what they're not showing us? It just looks spectacular. It looks, again, like something that ought to be a fairly big visual marvel, as Captain Marvel is quite visually pleasing. So that's my number 4, the second trailer for Captain Marvel. And at number 3, another second trailer, Godzilla King of Monsters. Oh man, dude, like, so as a Godzilla, fan, and certainly a fan of what they're building with Godzilla and King Kong, excuse me. Godzilla, King Kong, and a couple of the other, monsters that are showing up, and then knowing that we're going into this Godzilla movie, getting to see the classic, foes of Godzilla, Mothra and Rodan and King. Goodness me, man! Like you just so excited, and then to finally see them when the second trailer for Godzilla King of Monsters came out, and we got to see all of them in action, including the King. My lord, man, this movie's gonna be, again, very visually pleasing for sure. And it looks like, whereas the first Godzilla, a lot of the shots kind of in tight, told from kind of like the humans per saw, a lot of times blocked, or this does not look like that. These monsters are out in full effect, man, just tearing it up. I mean, Rodan's just wiping everything out, just in fire. Mothra is just so pretty, and Ghidorah is just shooting lightning lasers everywhere. Oh man, he's three heads, and then that final shot, man, of him and Godzilla running at each other. This thing, I was psyched after the first trailer, much like Captain Marvel. And then the second trailer comes out, and they do what they do in that trailer, and I'm just like, wow, man, like unbelievable. I cannot wait for Godzilla King of Monsters. Which brings us to our number 2 in the top 5 trailers of the year for the old Seaman. And this is actually a tie. No, I'm sorry, not this one. Number 2 is not a tie. Yes. Number 2 is a tie. First up, The Curse of La Llorona. Holy man, you want to talk about a movie trailer that got me? I don't think I have jumped as badly as I jumped during that trailer. When she turns her head to look at the little kid and then starts moving and just stops, and you can see her shadow that whole time. I'm just standing there. I'm like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. I'm like waiting for it to disappear completely into the shadow and pop somewhere. And while I'm watching it over here, whew, she comes out that way. Heart attack, man. And then obviously the end pop, not nearly as big as the first one, but again, that movie looks like it is going to have you on the edge of your seat, super tense the whole way. I'm super psyched as a horror junkie. I'm really psyched for that movie, and that trailer is what did it. Just reading or no, I would have figured out this is going to be another. And that trailer, holy cow, man! When the kid is in the car and the windows are rolling down, and the locks are going off, and that movie, I'm pumped, and certainly deserves a spot in the top 5, and comes in tied with number 2. The other, winner of the 2 spot, not necessarily the most visually stunning or giving us a ton to look at, but oh man, talk about like just building off of what you've previously done. The Avengers Endgame trailer is so wonderful. Like when I watched it, I was like, good. I'm glad you didn't show me too much. And then went back and watched it like 3, 4, 5 more times. And you just sat there and was like, wow, what they're setting up for this movie. Just seeing where everybody is at currently, all you needed, man. I mean, watching Tony, deliver that speech to Pepper. At the beginning, you're just feeling what Tony's going through, and you're just kind of seeing where everyone's at, man. It's him, and obviously Nebula's kind of giving him some space. And then you go over and you see Cap. I mean, he's shaved. The snap affected Cap so bad he had to be like, I got to take off this beautiful beard I have, and then just the one rolling tear. But then obviously hearing him and Black Widow, seeing the two of them, kind of talk about the rest of it, just seeing where everyone's at, man. You see, Banner looking at the different faces, one of which was Shuri. I just rewatched, Avengers Infinity War. You don't see her go in the movie at all. So to find out that she was claimed by the snap, God, is that heartbreaking. And you can just see he looks like lost, right? He's the only mind on Earth because Tony's lost in space still. And then getting to see Ronan. Oh man, I freaked out when I saw that outfit, and when he started wiping off the blade, I was just like, ooh, he pulled that mask off, and Black Widow's sitting there, and you're just like, oh no. Oh, I cannot wait. Like I said, just did a really, really great job of painting a very, very grim tone because everyone is just crushed by this. And then a teeny tiny sliver of hope right at the end of the trailer when Ant-Man shows up outside of the gates and he's like, hey, you guys remember me? I was at that airport once. Oh, God, just the perfect little way to get you to smile, to not feel so bad and doom and gloom, kind of the way the movie and the trailer kind of just set everything. So Endgame, totally one of my favorite trailers of the year, which brings us to number 1, and it's a trailer that literally just came out a week ago, and that is the Us trailer. Oh my gosh, man. Jordan Peele. Can that guy work a like a soundtrack, man. Taking the I Got Five on it um song and then twisting it the way he does when the trailer flips to creepiness. Wow, it certainly seems like he is cooking up something spectacular there, and I'm super super psyched for that movie. I mean, and the whole concept, right? Like the strangers has a very strangers-esque feel to it, but that they're the same people as our protagonists, at least looking wise. They all look a little off. I'm very 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 intrigued by that. Coming off of Get Out, I'm game for anything Jordan Peele is doing. So there you go. That is my top 5 favorite trailers of the year. The Aquaman extended trailer, Captain Marvel's second trailer, Godzilla King of Monsters second trailer, La Llorona, Curse of La Llorona, and and Endgame, Avengers Endgame coming in at 2, and then Us at number 1. Which brings us to one of my other favorite things from this year, and that's just individual scenes. There are some fantastic scenes this year in movies. So much so that I have a top 5 here as well. We're gonna start again with honorable mentions, and in this honorable mention section, we actually have 5. So it's kind of like a top 10, really. But if I would have done top 10 and an honorable mention, then you're at 15, and there's too many scenes. But there were some fantastic scenes this year, and these are my 10 favorites. So the honorable mentions of the top 5 best scenes of the year. First, First Man. When the One Small Step Man, when they actually get to the moon, it's the only scene in the entire movie that is shot in IMAX. And for me, it's the only scene that I was really, really like super in on. I was not a huge fan of First Man, but when they went to the moon, that IMAX section was mind blowing. Watch that scene, and even not in an IMAX, because if I saw it in a pre-screening on a regular screen, and it was amazing. And obviously, IMAX improved all that, but you just watching that in general, the way it's shot is just absolutely beautiful, and certainly one of my favorite scenes of the year. Just captured your imagination. You just kind of sit there going, "You wonder what it was like to be that group of dudes, like those two stepping onto the moon." That scene is just so well shot. It's so well executed. You just feel everything that you should be feeling in that moment. I really, really did enjoy that scene. Number 4, this was just a scene that put an absolute smile on my face. Number 4 in the honorable mention, so number 9 overall. Game night, when they're trying to retrieve the bullet from Jason Bateman's arm. It's one of the funniest laugh out loud scenes of that entire movie. And Bateman is just operating at like peak level when he has that squeaky toy in his mouth, and they're pouring that alcohol into the hole, and then they realize that the hole is through and through. That scene just made me laugh in a movie that I absolutely loved. It was certainly one of the more entertaining scenes. So coming in at number 9, 4th in the honorable mention, Game Night's retrieving the bullet sequence. It was really, really funny. And just, it captured the essence of that movie really quite well. And like I said, when Jason Bateman's operating at the peak of his game, I'm all about Jason Bateman. Which brings us to number 3 in the honorable mention category. And that's Mission Impossible Fallout's bathroom fight. Yes, coming in at 7, I guess, overall. The bathroom fight scene is just stellar. It is so pretty. The white bathroom just accentuates everything. The fact that the entire room is just built to be destroyed. Wow, man. Really, really enjoyed watching that. The fight choreography in that sequence is amazing also. Just the whole stretch of that scene, the way that Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill get their asses whipped, is crazy to watch, but also very entertaining. The way it's written, like I said, the way that it's choreographed, it's ridiculous to think that entire room is destroyed in the manner that it is. But it certainly is a lot of fun to watch them destroy that bathroom, and the choreography so good. And like I said, on that white backdrop, it just pops. Like almost everything in that movie pops. So certainly worthy of being in the honorable mention category. Which brings us to number 7. number 2 in the honorable mention category, and that is the widows driving the 18th. This is probably the most impactful scene in the entire movie from Steve McQueen. And it's where Colin Farrell's character is coming from, like an event in the heart of the 18th. And he gets into the car and he's having a conversation afterwards with, I think it's like his assistant. And, he's just spewing all of his rhetoric, but you're not paying attention to anything he's saying because McQueen puts the camera on the outside of the car so you can't see the actors. It's all VO. And you just watch the car drive, and it refers back to something David Tyree Henry says to him earlier in the movie, where it's like, yeah, man, you really live in the 18th. You're like the last house in the 18th, and probably the nicest spot you could have. Like someone might actually want to move there. And then you get to watch him drive from the heart of the 18th of Chicago out to where his house is, and you see the contrast, and it sums up everything McQueen is going for in this movie. Just so well, and it's just so beautifully shot. Such an interesting camera angle to have it on the front of the car and kind of like the way that it is. But it also tells a story when you're just watching this car drive. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I loved, my favorite scene of that movie by far. Which brings us to the number 6 scene of the year. First in my honorable mention category, just missing the top 5. And that's the Infinity War finale / dusting sequence. That as the whole war is starting to break, out on Wakanda, and Thanos finally comes there himself. That whole sequence is great. Seeing Thor show up when he does and everything that he does, mixed into the end of the scene on Titan. It's just a sequence that leads to wonderful action. And that whole buildup, and the whole back half of that movie, really. But between the Titan scene and then the war on Wakanda, you're just watching stuff that you're like, oh my gosh. When Scarlet Witch comes in and just lays waste to everybody, you're in awe. Like I said, when Thor shows up, unbelievable. And then his conversation with Thanos is so like, oh, because he's like, I got you. And Thanos is just like, you should have gone for the head. And when he makes that snap, it created a term, right? Like dusting. Now, if you say, oh man, somebody got dusted or the dusting, like, or the snap, right? Like, exactly what that moment is. You know exactly what that means. And although we all know that pretty much everything that happened in that sequence is probably going to get reversed or mostly reversed, when it happened, you were just like, wait, what? Huh? Like you just start and it beautifully done from a CGI standpoint, turning them all into dust. And then obviously, the Russo brothers trusting Tom Holland to be, with his idea of like Spider-Man would fight harder than anybody, so he'd stay a little bit longer. And then it crushes you, man. It's that punch to the chest, and it just the whole thing was just so inventive, and just the whole setup leading up to the dusting. It is just it's wonderfully shot and so well executed. Certainly one of my favorite scenes of the year. So you go. Those are the 5 honorable mentions. First Man, Game Night. Our first man's one small step on the moon. Game Night's retrieving the bullet from Bateman's arm. Mission Impossible, Fallout's bathroom fight. Widows driving of the 18th, and then of course Infinity War's dusting. Real solid, but the top 5 even better, man. The scenes that are in this set of 5, some of my favorite. First up, Ready Player One. This will, I guess, contain some spoilers, obviously, if you haven't figured that out. But the Shining scene, that sequence, so spectacular. To go back and capture that hotel and the scenes from the movie and incorporate it into Ready Player One the way they do, even though it's not in the book, from what I've read, it's just a captivating scene. Like, you're walking around. I talked to one of my friends who had not seen The Shining, and he said when he got to that scene, he had no idea what was going on, and the ending, he was like, "Wah!" I was like, yeah, man, it was. And then when they elevated it, right, like some of the things that broke away from the original shots that had to be added in, some of the CGI, and the way they just built that whole structure, just created a horror scene in the middle of a movie that you're not expecting it, that just worked so well. The Shining scene in Ready Player One, number 5 on the best scenes of the year. Coming up at number 4, it's Annihilation, man, and it's a split. is a split because there are two scenes in Annihilation um, that just blew me away. First, the bear scene. Good God, you want to talk about maybe this one of the scariest sequences of the entire year? That bear killing the one girl and then using her screams as its noises, so eerie. And then you add in that like some of the girls are tied to chairs, and this thing is just coming in there and sniffing around and edge of your seat the whole time. It was one of the most perfectly crafted horror scenes of the year. And then they followed that up with a finale that was just visually mind blowing and conceptually like crazy. The Natalie Portman doppelganger sequence turning into like that shadow thing that kind of just mirrors everything she does and eventually starts to just crush her. It's just again so well choreographed. The CGI and the special effects in that scene are just wonderful. And just again, one of those sequences in that movie that you just sit there and you're just like, wow. I mean, the creation of the shadow, mirror, it just visually blows your mind. And then the score with what you're watching happen with Natalie Portman and this thing. Terrifying, man. Really, really, really well done. Two of the best horror scenes, I think, of the whole year popping up in this sci-fi film, that I thought was sneaky good. I really enjoyed Annihilation. But those two scenes specifically, man, really made that movie pop. And probably why I liked it so much is the fact that it ended so strong. Which brings us to number 3, and we're going back to Mission Impossible Fallout for 2 more scenes. That's right. We're going to combo 2 of the chase sequences from Mission Impossible Fallout. The motorcycle chase, I've said it once, I've probably said it a million times, is the bar for motorcycle chases. It's so well done and shot. And when you know that Tom Cruise is driving that motorcycle through traffic that's going the opposite way, obviously the choreographing and the timing and everything just has to work so well. And Christopher McQuarrie just shoots the crap out of that sequence. So much so that like you're just sitting there like, I don't know how this movie can get any better. And then, Tom Cruise literally does every chase scene you could possibly think of until the end, dude. The finale in Mission Impossible Fallout, which is that helicopter chase scene, while the rest of the team is defusing the bombs, and then the conclusion, the Tom Cruise versus Henry Cavill fight on the cliffside. It's just wonderfully built. It's the perfect finale for a movie like that. It just captures everything that you need in that last sequence, and the helicopter stuff is insane. I saw that movie twice in IMAX, and both times you just like jaw on the floor, like the cameras are inside the helicopter in a way Tom Cruise is the only person in this helicopter. The stuff that they're doing, especially if you've watched the behind the scenes stuff that they did and talking about that sequence and the choreography and how difficult some of that flying was, knowing it was Cruise the whole time. And like I said, the cameras work so well in IMAX. It's just visually stunning. And then you get a phenomenal end fight between, you literally get a fight in the helicopters between the two of them, and then their finale really, really solid. That was one of the best action movies of the year, and so many scenes in that movie you could throw into a list like this. But the motorcycle chase and the helicopter chase, 2 of the best stretches of that movie, just visually stunning and mind-blowing to watch when you know it's actually happening. Which brings us to number 2. And this one's coming out of Blind Spotting. And it is the final scene in Blind Spotting, which features Daveed Diggs. Again, spoilers, finding, he's moving stuff out of a house and grabs a picture and realizes that the house he's moving stuff for is the cop's house who shot the guy that he saw, the police shooting that he saw. So you're sitting there and he goes down into the basement and finds this cop, holds him at gunpoint, and delivers a rap that it's the perfect, again, one of those perfect endings to a movie. The whole movie, Daveed Diggs' character is kind of building up his rap. He's very methodical and slow, and he's kind of here, but he never gets into, his buddies, Rafael Casal's characters, just funness to the rap and the just really, really smooth flow. And then you watch, you just kind of is constantly building, getting better, and then the finale, man, talk about like powerful words and powerful, powerful imagery. Watching that whole sequence, the cop, I can't remember who played him, but his face, watch his face, that whole scene, man, where he's being held at gunpoint. The amount of emotions and things that are just going on facially with him, it is unbelievable. Um, and mix that in with David Diggs's performance and the lyrics that he is spitting. Wow, it's just so powerful in a movie that's unbelievably powerful. But a scene that just punctuates the whole thing and absolutely crushes. It's flawless. What easily deserving of the number 2 spot in the top 5 best scenes of the year, which brings us to number 1. And this might be a movie you'd be like, huh? Might not have seen. But man, it's totally in one of those like kind of trippy, like visual type movies. And Mandy was just excellent in that manner. I loved Mandy, but there is a scene in Mandy that just takes your breath away. The thing I praised Mandy so much for is, Nick Cage is a little out there these days, and this movie totally accommodates that style and approach that Nick Cage has, where crazy Nick Cage fits perfectly in this movie. And right after, being tied up and watching his wife, killed in front of him, he goes into a bathroom to clean his wounds with a liquor bottle. And he just, takes a swig. I think he pours some of it on the wound or whatever. And then he just starts screaming. And it is the most guttural, heartbreaking scream. It's so real. And if you watch it out of context, it's absurd. I mean, if you put the right musical score underneath that scene, you could generate a lot of laughs. But in the context of that movie, some of the best stuff I've seen Nick Cage do. And it was just so enjoyable to watch him lose his mind in the way he does, because it's so, you get it. Like, you totally feel for him in that moment, and totally understand where he is coming from. That you could be like, that's how I don't like, maybe not in my tighty whities, but I would do that also. It's really, really well shot. It's kind of just a stagnant camera, and it's just Nick Cage losing it, and it's wonderful. So there you go, man. The top 5 scenes of the year: Ready Player One, the Shining scene at number 5, Annihilation's bear scene, and the finale kind of mirror sequence in at number 4. Mission Impossible Fallout's 2 chase scenes coming in at number 3, the motorcycle chase and the helicopter chase into the finale. At number 2, the blind spotting garage sequence or basement sequence where David Diggs, confronts the cop and raps his ass off. Just wow. And then, of course, number 1, Mandy, the bathroom scene. Nick Cage, just stellar stuff. All right, man. It is time to start getting into the things that everybody came to see. And that will start with the top 10 worst movies of the year. Yes, the C-Man has a worst movies list. There were some movies that were not very good this year. And these 10 specifically, ooh, man. They all have moments and things that are nice. Most of them do, at least, but it's a rough go. So let's get into the honorable mentions category first. At number 5 there, Venom, right? Now, I loved Venom because Tom Hardy and the Venom relationship and all of that material is just brilliant, because Tom Hardy brings it to life in such a way that just worked so well and is visually very nice to look at. But from a movie standpoint, Venom is not a very good movie. I mean, almost anything that happens at the Life Foundation, you're just not interested in. It's not written very well. They don't give a lot of stuff for the other characters in the movie, although everybody does a really good job. Riz Ahmed and Michelle Williams. But there's just not much there for them to do. And when you add all of that together, it was not very good. But Tom Hardy, saves the movie by just giving a wonderful character performance as Venom. Which is why it just sneaks into the honorable mention category, because it's a rough movie to watch, but I'm psyched. I loved all the Venom stuff in the movie, and I think if they can kind of go all in and maybe go R for Venom 2, you could have something really, really spectacular. So number 5 in the honorable mention of the worst movies of the year comes in with Venom, which moves to number 4. Another movie that I was entertained by at times, but it never really achieves what it's really trying to get done. And considering that's sort of a ripoff of another set of movies, the John Wick universe. Hotel Artemis comes in at number 4 on the honorable mention list. There are some scenes that are really good. Dave Bautista is wonderful. As is most of the cast there. I have Google, so I can just look up the cast when I'm blanking on names. But yeah, I mean, there's stretches of the movie that are nice, that work pretty well. Um, but just so many missed opportunities. I mean, like I said, Dave Bautista is really good in it, but you don't use him for action sequences at all. And when he finally does get into an action sequence, you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. He's gonna like just kill a whole lot of people, and then he disappears off screen. You never see him until the very end of the movie. Sterling K. Brown is really, really good, but again, just like it teases you. This movie teases you constantly. So there are some really good performances. Like I said, Sterling K. Brown, Jodie Foster, Sophia Boutella, Jeff Goldblum, all wonderful performances. But when you waste Dave Bautista and Jeff Goldblum the way this movie does, I'm sorry, you're going to end up on the worst movies of the year for the Seaman. So number 4 on the honorable mention list for the worst movies of the year goes to Hotel Artemis, which brings us to number 3. And again, just a movie that did not succeed story-wise and just not good enough to overcome its issues story-wise, even though there's some spectacular visuals going on. And that's Mortal Engines coming in at 3 on the honorable mention list for worst movies. Like I said, I was entertained by this movie. I was entertained by this movie more than I think most people were, because the visuals were entertaining and very, very effective. And there's a couple good performances in there, but the story is so weak. The characters are spread so thin. There's just no character development anywhere during the movie except on the lead. And you just kind of have to slug through some of these sequences to get to the fun stuff. And it slowed the movie down and kind of hurt it in a way where it comes in at number 3 on the honorable mention for worst movies of the year, which brings us to number 2. Again, another really, really solid performance, something I see potential in, especially within the franchise. But the movie overall, and that is The Girl in the Spider's Web. It just fell flat in so many ways where, it just compared to the other ones, I was not quite feeling Girl in the Spider's Web. Even though you get an absolutely stellar performance from Claire Foy. Claire Foy is brilliant. She really does a good job as Lisbeth, I thought. But just like every time the action starts getting ready to go, it then ends. And every time the movie feels like it's starting to get going, it kind of goes flat. And it struggled that way throughout, where it's like you got a really good performance, but it didn't quite reach, the predecessors. And I just thought they could have utilized Claire Foy a little bit better. So that one slides in at the 2 spot in the honorable mention category for worst movies of the year, which brings us to the last of our honorable mentions. Right, just misses the top 10, so I guess it should be proud of itself for that. And that's Red Sparrow. Again, another movie that has really good performances. I really did like, what was going on here with Joel Edgerton. I thought he does a pretty good job. And then I am blanking on all the people's names today. But Jennifer Lawrence, she does bring a really solid performance in the movie. But unfortunately, the movie itself just goes to the wrong way. This movie was going for shock, I think, value. A lot of the nudity in it is unnecessary. There's 2 rape scenes. That's a lot, and they're both very, very graphic. There are just a lot of things that did not work and ultimately kind of muddled what could have been a really cool spy movie. So take away the leads of that movie, and you're maybe looking at one of the worst movies of the entire year. And like I said, again, J-Lo gives stretches of good performances, but just some of the stuff, it was like, why are we going for shock and awe, Jennifer Lawrence. Like you've got an Oscar. You're really really talented. Just it seemed like the movie could have been something else, and I think it would have been better had it been something other than it was. So there you go, man. That's the honorable mentions for the top 10 worst movies of the year. Just missing out on that list. It's Venom, Hotel Artemis, Mortal Engines, Girl in the Spider's Web, and Red Sparrow, which brings us to the top 10 worst movies of the year. Oh man, I tell you, these movies. Eek. And you might be surprised by some of them, especially something like number 10, because JK does not land on lists like this really ever. But Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald. Eek. This movie starts with one of the best scenes in the wizarding world, maybe that have ever been put together. The opening sequence in Fantastic Beasts and for the Crimes of Grindelwald, and watching Grindelwald escape the prison and just that whole stretch, visually stunning, acted really really well, and you're like, yes, man, my bar is I am psyched up, and then the movie starts going, and you're like, why are there so many characters? Why are we not spending time with people? Why is it just felt very exposition heavy, and it's one of these things that we're learning. JK is not great at writing scripts. I think JK needs to bring in some consultants, write the script, and then have those people clean it up so that it works within the context of a movie. Because again, there are elements of this movie that are really good. Johnny Depp, Jude Law, fantastic. Very, very little screen time. And everybody, there's so many characters to bounce throughout the movie. You just lose people, and you don't get to utilize the performances the way you want to. And then some of the twists and things they threw in there, you find out, it just didn't work well. And, as much as I wanted the movie to be, really, really good, it felt a little flat for me. One of my least favorite within the wizarding world. So number 10, Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, brings us to number 9, which was a movie I was hopeful would be funny. And had moments that were, but ultimately just too much crude humor for no reason really hurt this movie a lot. Happy Time Murders. It's one of those things like, yeah, we get to see crude Muppets, that's worked, on Broadway with Avenue Q, and the Avenue Q people obviously involved within this a little bit, I believe. But, Melissa McCarthy, it felt like there was a lot of ad-libbing, and McCarthy has moments that match what we're familiar with her, but just it never really clicks. The movie never gets funny enough. The stuff that's supposed to make you laugh, sometimes you just sit there and like, that was unnecessary. And there's a lot of that throughout the entire movie. So yeah, at times it's not horrible, but it's just not very good. So Happy Time Murders comes in at number 9, which brings us to number 8, and a movie and a duo I never thought I would put on a list like this because I am a massive fan of both. But number 8 on the worst movies of the year, Holmes and Watson. That's right, folks. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, it doesn't feel like they could recapture the magic from Talladega Nights or Step Brothers. The movie just it's a lot of bits. This movie was so bit heavy. It felt like there were more bits in this movie than any of the other movies that I've seen them have. They were just it was like just one bit to the next bit to the next bit, and they weren't very funny. There are definitely moments. I don't think this movie is as bad as its Rotten Tomatoes score indicates. I think last I checked, it was at a 4%. I don't think it's that terrible. They'll get you to laugh and smile a few times because John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell are just funny people. But overall, the story is not very good. And it's not very funny. And you give Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, I don't know how that movie doesn't make you laugh more. And it struggles. So in at number 8, Holmes and Watson, breaks my heart so bad to say that because I love those guys. Which is why it's even worse because I expect much better from them. Which brings us to number 7, and teams up Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg again. And Mile 22 had something that had, like, you could see the potential in the movie. Mark Wahlberg is actually really, really good in the movie. He's kind of a fast, but very, very fast talking, very, very witty, and all of that stuff. I loved watching him do it, but the action sequences are just shot horribly. I mean, you have Iko Uwais, who is one of the best martial artists in the entire world. In the raid, there are sections where the camera just sits there so that you can see everything that he's doing. And for some reason, Berg opts to cut around him like he's a guy who doesn't know how to fight, and you just sit there and you like, oh wait, huh? I kind of did. How did he do that? And you just miss all of the wonder. To waste a character in that way, especially when the movie in and of itself just is all right. The thing you really need to pop is your lead, so Wahlberg, and he does. And then you need your action to pop, and you have a guy who should have made the action pop in such an easy way. To waste Iko Uwais that way. So much so that like maybe it hurts his career. I don't know. I was very, very upsetting. So number 7, Mile 22, which brings us to number 6, a movie I mentioned a little bit earlier when I was talking about my favorite scenes of the year. Although it certainly had one of the more spectacular scenes of the year. First Man just didn't do it for me, man. Ryan Gosling's good, but Neil Armstrong's just not interesting. I mean, like as far as personality goes, he's very dry. He's very, very vanilla. And it doesn't give Gosling much to do and work with. I think he delivers it really nicely, but the movie itself, I was less intrigued about just his story and more like I want to know like the relationship between him and Buzz, because some of the things that we see with them, you kind of go, oh wow, that's cool. What or that's wow, why would you say that? And then you don't kind of follow it up at all. It was just it was rough for me. I liked the space stuff, and I just didn't feel we spent enough time there. I would have preferred more if we focused like on the mission and the people involved in the mission and their relationships than just following around Neil Armstrong. But obviously, that's the way they go, and it was for me. It wasn't very good. Although spectacular when you're in space, which is why it falls in at number 6, which brings us to the top 5 worst movies of the year. Number 5, Truth or Dare. This was a Blumhouse production. I'm a big Blumhouse movie guy, but this one, it struggled, man. There were so many times where the movie has moments where you're like, ooh, you're doing something interesting and creative and new, and then the very next thing that happens kind of negates it, and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, the way the movie ends, I was like, wow, this is really kind of clever. And then it like kind of negates how clever the end of the movie is. It just was not. It didn't work. The scare sequences and the death scenes are whatever. And just it didn't grip me enough, because every time I started to get like wanting to get in on it, it does something else that makes you go, well, all right, I guess we're gonna do that then. And it just kind of fell flat. So number 5, Truth or Dare, which brings us to number 4. And this was a comedy duo team up that I thought failed even worse than Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly did. Night School. You got Kevin Hart and oh my brain is shot tonight, huh? The New Year's took a little bit out of the sea, man. He's struggling today pretty bad. But Tiffany Haddish, there it is. Wow. Yeah, you have easily one of the funniest women in the entire world in Tiffany Haddish, and one of the funniest guys in Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart coming close to oversaturation, and he's pulled off a little bit, which I think is good. But usually he's gonna make you laugh, and he'll get you into it. In Night School, you're expecting these two to riff, and a couple moments where they start to riff, you're like, oh, here we go, and it never goes anywhere. Again, the jokes are just flat. They're not very funny. The writing is kind of weak, and it just kind of felt like people showed up to collect a paycheck, and they weren't bringing their A game. I don't know if that was from the directing or from the acting in and of itself, but Night School should have been really, really funny, and really, really wasn't. And so that comes in at number 4. That brings us to number 3, and the top 3 is rough, man. Hey. And this one especially, again, actors I really, really like in this one, and just doesn't do anything. I was hoping it was gonna be like, just doesn't make anything at the box office. It'll never get a sequel. It won't ever go anywhere. But I really enjoyed the Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was kind of fresh, and the trailers for this looked like it was gonna be rough, but interesting or good enough to be at least entertaining. And when you got Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx and Ben Mendelsohn, Robin Hood was a train wreck, man. I mean, Taron Egerton's charisma and charm could not save this movie, and he was trying really hard. Jamie Foxx just felt like he didn't care at all. It was one of the weakest performances I've seen from him in a long time. And his accent kind of disappears at times. It felt like a really half-assed performance. And Ben Mendelsohn feels like he's in a Star Wars movie, but we're in a Robin Hood movie. So that was weird. And he's a pretty generic sheriff of Nottingham. And that was super, super upsetting, man, because you had a lot of people in a lot of places where this could have been cool. And some of the action sequences are okay. Specifically the one chase in like the carriage. That sequence is really dope. But the movie itself, oh God, I almost walked out of the theater, and that doesn't happen very often. So that's it, man. Number 3, Robin Hood, just not it wasn't good. Number 2, I forgot this movie happened this year. I forgot this movie existed. That's how bad this was. I wanted to block this from my brain so fast. Like I said, I forgot that I went and saw this movie. But coming in at number 2, Gotti. Gotti was god awful. This movie had lots of development issues. It took years and years and years to make. So much so where Travolta was involved in the whole thing. So like he can't get off scot-free because even though he acts really, really well, and I think he does a good job as Gotti, the production is terrible. The script is atrocious. And it's just flat out horrible, man. I mean, it's you sit there and you watch this movie and you're just like, it's not even a cohesive story. I'm not sure what they're trying to tell. They're just kind of showing, almost like how Holmes and Watson was like bit after bit after bit after bit. This was just like, oh, here's something that Gotti did. Oh, here's something Gotti did. Oh, here's another thing that Gotti did. And you're searching the whole movie for like how it ties together. And it was just, like I said, so bad, I forgot about it as soon as I saw it. So number 2, Gotti. And what could be worse than that? Well, when you watch as many horror movies as I watch, you're bound to run into a few that are even worse than Gotti was. And Slender Man, goodness me, just an absolute disaster. I thought that this movie could be creepy and cool. It's lore and legend that I think, plenty of people are familiar with. There's been games and books, and a lot of people know who Slender Man is. So I was intrigued. I wanted to see Slender Man on the big screen in a terrifying way. And the trailers were weird and disjointed and creepy. And I was like, ooh, this could be good. And then the movie started and I was like, yo, why did this movie get made? It's just the script is really bad. The acting is not very good. It's like paint by numbers for a horror movie. It's really cliche. It has a couple cool entrances for Slender Man. The way he comes out of the shadow and actually forms a couple times, pretty cool. But overall, yeah, don't. I don't care how big a fan you are of horror movies. Do not watch Slender Man. It was absolutely god awful. All right, that is it. That is our top 10 worst movies of the year. Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, Happy Time Murders, Holmes and Watson, Mile 22, and First Man fill out the bottom half, and the 5 worst, Truth or Dare, Night School, Robin Hood, Gotti, and in at number 1, Slender Man. Oh God, man, really, really bad movies. So stay away from those unless you like to torture yourself and kind of put yourself through just really bad cinema. Then maybe check them out. But I'd say stay away. All right, man. That's it for worst movies of the year. Now it is finally the time we've all been waiting for, man. The Seaman's big top 10 of the year. This is a hard list to make, dude. There are so many movies and a lot of good ones this year. So much so that like I think I did two halves of the year, man. I had a top 10 from the first half, a top 10 from the second. I said, at least if I can narrow it down at those times, I'm only working with 20 films to get to 10 rather than like 50 films and trying to get to 10. And the second half was, woof, man, that was rough, man. I had like 34 movies that I enjoyed in the second half that I would like was just looking at and trying to figure out, and got rid of some quick, but it took a while. And narrowing down the top 10 the second half was so hard. I was like, wow, this might be a lot of the top 10. And then when I compared the two, it's actually pretty evenly split from the two lists. So let's jump into the honorable mentions first. Number 5 here, Green Book. I really dug this movie. It's shot wonderfully, and the leading men, Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen, are just spectacular. I've been saying it since I saw the movie. Viggo Mortensen's my dark horse to win the Oscar for best actor. It's one of the best performances of the year. He plays Tony Lip so well. And Mahershala Ali's performance as Dr. Don Shirley, it just, both of them just capture you in a way where you're just like, this movie is just so rock solid and so good, and it's just a really wonderful story. Getting to see that friendship grow and the way they interact with each other and where everything goes is just wonderful. I really loved Green Book, but just missing out on the top 10, but good enough to be in the honorable mention category. Number 4 here is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Wow, like this was like this is the first Jurassic Park movie, that I was like, wow, this actually feels like it's close to as good as the original. What they do in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, wow. And the fact that we finally get to the place that we've only been hinting at getting to for like this entire franchise's run. The dinosaurs are finally out, man. They've escaped. You would assume at some point dinosaurs would escape the amount of times we've brought them back to the States. And so many times they should have gotten loose. They are now full on out there. And everything in the movie for me was working. I really enjoyed, the horror elements. That there are stretches in the movie, where you're just like on the edge of your seat, scared. That in Dominus, what do they call that raptor? But that Indoraptor or whatever, it was like the Indominus Rex and a raptor merged together. So terrifying, man. The fact that they used practical dinosaurs again, actually they're physical dinosaurs, it adds so much to the movie. And then, I mean, you get like when the island blowing up, that sequence is wild. Great action, and then like rip your chest out of your heart so you sob. Jay Bayona, he hit you, man, in the chest hard. You see one of these long necks there. The first dinosaur we saw out in the park, way back when, in the original Jurassic Park, and that's the last thing you see on the island as it disappears into. Oh my gosh, made me cry. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom made me cry. That movie did a really good job. I really loved what Bayona did. I love, the cast is wonderful. I love Chris Pratt. I love Bryce Dallas Howard. Justice Smith was wonderful. And they all do their jobs really well. And it was great utilization of the dinosaurs and just a really solid story, start to finish, that just kind of set up something that should be pretty awesome for the third installment in the Jurassic World series. So number 4 on the honorable mentions, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which brings us to number 3, and a movie that I thought, slam dunk, no doubt about it, was going to be the best animated movie of the entire year the minute I saw it. It's the best stuff I've seen Pixar do in ages. Incredibles 2 was incredible. Some of the best animation that you will see from Pixar up to this point. But another animated movie came out that almost made you forget Incredibles 2 came out this year. But it did come out this year, and it was really good, man. I love the story. I love getting to watch Elastigirl just have a really cool story and kind of be the one that drives it, and the interesting ways that they use her. Good Lord, Fantastic Four fans, if a Fantastic Four movie comes out, you gotta, do better than what they do with Elastigirl, Marvel. And that's gonna be tough because her power set, the way they utilize it is so stellar, and it's a lot of fun. and just very, very inventive. I mean, the way she can turn herself like into a parachute when she's on her motorcycle, the way her motorcycle detaches and moves all over the place. It's just wonderful to watch. Absolutely loved Incredibles 2. Was the best animated film of the year until about a month ago. We'll get to that one certainly. But coming in at 3 on the honorable mentions, Incredibles 2, really great movie. Number 2 here in the honorable mention area. Shocked that this would even be near this list or be on either of the first 2 lists from the first half of the year. But Bumblebee, wow, man. Travis Knight, super impressed with this movie. Going back to the Gen 1s, the look is just something that you're very familiar with if you watch the cartoon. It really mirrors that quite well. It's conceptually really, really nice to look at. It's nice to not see Optimus Prime with a mouth, because Optimus Prime shouldn't have a mouth. You get those things right, this movie just elevates real fast. Then throw in the fact that, Travis Knight comes from this animation world, and he really took what he has skill set wise there and applied it in really stunning ways with the visual effects in this movie. The CGI is great. The Transformer action sequences are so well choreographed, and they're just a lot of fun and visually pleasing. And unlike Michael Bay versions of these movies, you can actually see what it is you're looking at. You're not like confused as to what you're looking at. I like that the transformations are simpler. They're in bigger chunks sometimes. You use a lot of the paneling on the cars, especially on Bumblebee. I love that Bumblebee transforms obviously the most of anybody in the movie. And every time he does, the camera's someplace different, so you're seeing something you haven't seen before. There's a shot at one point in the movie where he's transforming and he looks like a bumblebee. Just really, really creative stuff. And then in front of the camera, Haley Steinfeld was excellent, man. I think some of the best work she's done in her career. The relationship he has with Bumblebee is wonderful. Her story makes sense. For her to be in the movie makes sense. And then, of course, this movie started on Cybertron. You give me a Transformer movie that starts on Cybertron, take all my money, and you get me really, really excited. So much so that Bumblebee comes in at number 2 on the honorable mention list, which brings us to number 1 and just misses the top 10. But Spike Lee's BlacKkKlansman, what a wonderful flick. It was so nice to see Spike back, behind the camera in a movie that just really, really worked. It's entertaining as all hell. John David Washington and Adam Driver are just spectacular. It's a perfect pairing. And the story of Ron Stallworth is just insane. Being a black cop that infiltrates the KKK by posing as a white cop and having his white cop buddy go to the meetings. They don't try to sound the same. The fact that it happened is wild. The seeing Ron Stallworth interviewed, after the movie came out or right before the movie came out, and like showing that he has the actual card. You see the actual KKK card in the movie. Wow. And then throw in the performances. Like I said, John David Washington, spectacular, man. I'm so happy for him. He's got a big shadow to climb out of. With what his dad has done, Denzel. But he's certainly carving out and paving his own way. And I really, really dug what he was doing. Adam Driver, like I said, you have a younger actor like John David Washington, you give him a rock solid performing actor in Adam Driver, and he just helps elevate the material. They're just both wonderful together, and their material and riffs make you laugh. And then you have the David Duke side of the story, and Topher Grace does a really good job of making it seem, very easy as to why people might fall for this guy and like him, because he has this appeal to him. But God, then he opens his mouth and you're just, what? And I really thought Spike did a good job of making sure to balance that, heavy stuff with the entertainment stuff. And then some of the individual shots and some of the scenes, so poignant, so beautiful. He's got a stretch where there's like a speaker, and you're just seeing all of these people on like a black background. You're fading in and out of just heads with afros. Really, really, really wonderful stuff. So rounding out the honorable mention list and just missing the top 10, BlacKkKlansman. So Green Book, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Incredibles 2, Bumblebee, and BlacKkKlansman. Your 5 honorable mentions, just missing the top 10 list. All right, it's time to go top 10 movies of the year. Oh man, like I said, this list was hard to get done, but we are finally here. Gonna dive into these top 10 movies. And some of them are a doozy. And some of them are a surprise. Like number 10, for instance. I love this movie. When I saw it, I walked out. I was like, that was one of my favorite movies of the year right away. It was just so much more entertaining. It's laugh out loud funny. I didn't expect it to be, and it's a really solid thriller with nice twists that you don't see coming, and everything's structured and delivered so well. A Simple Favor. Oh my gosh, man, what a great movie. Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick are phenomenal in this movie. I love their relationship. I love how everything plays out on the backside. I love the secrets that are in this movie. Like I said, the twists and turns are really, really good. And everything in the movie is just executed really well. Really strong script, really great performances, excellent job behind the camera. The movie's just structured in a way where the pacing is really good. It never slows down. And like I said, it's laugh out loud funny at times, and then edge of your seat suspenseful at times. Really clever movie. Absolutely loved A Simple Favor. And I'm really glad that it made it onto the top 10 because one of my favorite underrated films of the year. People should be talking about how good that one was. Which brings us to number 9, and this was another movie I didn't necessarily expect would end up on a list like this. I thought, it would be a fun movie, maybe get some cool action. But Upgrade did so much more than that. What a great sci-fi movie from Lee Winnell. It's just such an interesting concept. The guy gets into a car accident, becomes a quadriplegic. So they put technology into his spine that essentially it's a computer that can operate his body. And then the computer can take control if he so chooses. And the way that works, the way he communicates, I thought it was a great base for an idea. If when you're doing the Venom stuff, like this is how Venom should work. Like the way Tom Hardy can interact with Venom would work very, very well in this, like the way it does in this. And obviously they went for a different approach and that worked just as well. But what they do in Upgrade from a story wise is really good. The twists in that movie really hit. And the action is unbelievable, man. Like when he is being controlled by the robot and everything is so perfect and like angled, it's wild to look at. And then, you watch him, it's also all like delayed sometimes too. Like when he has to tell it to do things, it's like, okay, I need, he's a quadriplegic. So it's like, I want to grab, this box. So like, okay, grab box and it's like a second behind, but when the computer takes over, wow. So perfect in every movement and execution. The choreography in the movie is wonderful. Absolutely loved Upgrade. Comes in at number 9, which brings us to number 8. And I mean, this movie popped up everywhere today, except on the worst list, right? Some of my favorite scenes in this movie, a lot of them are in this movie. Mission Impossible Fallout. Best thing that McQuarrie and Tom Cruise have done together. It's going to be hard to follow this movie. The stunts are spectacular. Like I said, that motorcycle chase scene, the helicopter chase scene, the halo jumps, the chase, the foot chase scene on top of the buildings where, Cruise broke his ankle. All of it just really, really unbelievable. To just sit there and watch, and because it's Tom Cruise the whole movie, and then throw in that the movie's really, really good, man. McQuarrie tying these movies together is something that Mission Impossible has never done. Bringing back female characters, something it's never done. Rebecca Ferguson. I'm ready for a Mission Impossible movie led by that woman. She's so good. But it's just everything was operating with some of these characters to just tell this one story through multiple movies. It really, really worked. And what McQuarrie and Cruise deliver is spectacular. It's easily one of the best action movies of the last 10 years. Maybe one of the best action movies of all time. It might be like, you could argue that this is like the bar for action movies now, man. Like wild, and on IMAX, just mind-blowing. Absolutely loved Mission Impossible Fallout. Comes in at number 8, which brings us to number 7. Another movie I'd never thought in a million years would be on this list, and then I went and saw it, and my brain broke. Aquaman, dude. Wow. I mean, what James Wan pulled off visually in this movie is spectacular. What the way he protects his actors, right? I mean, a lot of people tell you Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, not great actors. They're solid, and when they're put in situations where they can shine in what they are really good at, they pop, and the movie just pops the whole time. I loved what Momoa did. I mean, just it feeling so natural to who he is. It makes the character feel authentic because it's so authentically him. And Momoa is just wonderful. Always puts a smile on your face, and his action sequences are spectacular. I mean, the orange suit. Oh my gosh, Mira, give her her own movie, man. Her power set, the water kinesis, aqua kinesis. The way she can like manipulate water, and she saves Aquaman at one point. I was like, I don't even know why you needed Aquaman, Mira. You could have taken care of all this yourself. Just really, really creative, spectacular stuff. Some of the things that we see underwater are unnatural. You see waterfalls, and you're like, that's beautiful, but there aren't waterfalls underwater. Come on, James Wan, what are you doing? And then the camera goes through, and it's sand, and you're like, oh my god. The way they describe why everything lights up the way it does is because Atlantean eyes adjust to the darkness, and that's what they see. Just visually mind blowing. It was like Avatar underwater. A lot of people have said that, and it's very, very accurate. It's really a visual marvel, and it's a little long, 2 hours, 20 minutes. It's lengthy, but it's just all spectacular stuff. It's 3 solid acts. I think it's the best movie DC's made, and it's on its way to being the first $1 billion DC movie. So there you go, man. Aquaman's at number 7, which brings us to number 6, and it hurt to not have this one in the top 5 because I love this movie so much. I've fallen more in love with this movie the more I watch it, but Avengers Infinity War. Wow. I mean, heartbreaking, right? I mean, it did everything that it was asked to do. It set itself up to deliver a really, really huge conclusion for Endgame. And it killed major players. It gave you a villain that is absolutely terrifying, and the way they make Thanos terrifying it was worthy of all of the buildup of 10 years of waiting to get to him. Really, really just, the Josh Brolin's performance is great. And then you throw in all of our Avengers. I mean, Downey Jr.'s and Chris Evans is, Cap, even though they don't see each other interact at all the entire movie. Watching them run those teams and try to figure out how to stop Thanos and, all of his guys and minions. And it's visually, like I said, stunning. The CGI work in this movie is spectacular. You're watching all these things happen that aren't on screen or happening, right? Like they're all CGI, and it looks so real. The movie just it has so much weight. Everything is at stake. Every decision, everything that happens, you're like, oh, is this where are we? Just so well executed by the Russo brothers. They're perfect up on the spin. They just need to land it now with Endgame, but I have no doubt that they will. I loved Avengers Infinity War. Comes in at number 6, just misses the top 5. But the top 5 are so good. And the one that edged Infinity War out is a movie. When I went and saw this, man, I was like, you can do that? American Animals it's a documentary that's just getting, I hope not, but it feels like it's being overlooked. It's not being talked about. It is one of the best movies of the year, man. And you get this doc about this group of kids who try to steal books from a library because it could be easy, and then every disastrous thing that goes from there. Is just a wild story in and of itself, but the movie starts like a movie. You're watching, Evan Peters and actual actors do stuff, and then all of a sudden people are talking, and you're like, okay, this is just a movie. You're getting interviews, and then you start to realize that the interviews are real because one of the characters' actual self is talking, and you're like, I'm in the middle of a document. This isn't a movie. I thought this was just like a based on a true story movie. None of the trailers showed anything about a documentary, just showed the the cinema aspects of it. And wow, I mean, the story is insane. Like you just sit there and you're flabbergasted. You're just like, wow, how did this happen? And why would these kids do this? And then you get to watch, instead of like, just recreated footage of like random people doing things that are similar, you get like an actual movie. And the way they interweave the doc stuff with the movie stuff, and the two worlds kind of collide a little bit. American Animals is just nothing but a wow movie. I absolutely loved American Animals. Just spectacular. Really, really great stuff. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. Comes in at number 5, which brings us to number 4. It is another movie that I was like, wow. The trailers, I was expecting good things, but what John Krasinski delivers in A Quiet Place, wow. I mean, one of the best horror movies in the last 10 years, easy. And it is a dark family drama. And what I love is I just watched Bird Box, which is Netflix's kind of similar esque version, where, Sandra Bullock, um, is in the middle of an epidemic or like a all out outbreak like this where there's some sort of creatures on the earth that are killing people. But you can't see them. And just comparing the movies just made me realize how perfect A Quiet Place is. I mean, they do not wait to show you the creatures. You see them right away at the beginning, although it's fast. You do see it. There's a moment right away that immediately connects you to this family 2 minutes into the movie. And then you do see them up close pretty quick, and they save things so that there are things to reveal as you go. But knowing what they look like and getting to physically see them, in tight spaces near our cast, just drives up the suspense levels. It just jacks everything up in the movie where you're just constantly on the edge of your seat, scared to death of what's going on screen. Then just throwing tremendous performances. Krasinski, Emily Blunt are wonderful. They just both do everything they're asked to do so well. John Krasinski breaks your heart. I mean, just wow, And then the kids are also really, really good in this movie. Like I said, start to finish, this thing is flawless. Krasinski should be so proud, and I'm glad that he's going to get to make more of these. Because if he can deliver anything like this again, what an awesome concept. I really loved everything about A Quiet Place. Comes in at number 4, which brings us to the top 3. Oh man, dude, these are some doozies. And number 3 is the animated movie that made me forget that Incredibles 2 happened this year. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. What? This movie just makes you sit there and go, I wonder what Phil and Lord and Miller's Phil Lord, Chris Miller's Solo looks like. I want to see that movie now, because this animation style, this story, telling the Miles Morales story and the way in which they did it, spectacular, man. It was just unbelievable to watch unfold. So cool. Everything visually is just stunning. The animation is so unique. Sometimes you feel like you're watching a 3D movie and you should have glasses, but you don't need them. And there are things out of focus and kind of fuzzy on purpose. The story, you're just so gripped to Miles' story, and then interweave in the Spider-Verse stuff, and it all works, and it never clutters Miles' story. It never knocks the pacing off. They introduce all these other Spider-Men in really, really unique ways. Everything about this movie is just perfect. It's, for me, the best Spider-Man movie to date, and it is one of the all-time greatest superhero movies I've ever seen. A wonderful origin story, really captures the essence of all its characters. It's like a living, breathing comic book. If you've ever wondered if like a panel came to life, what it would look like, Spider-Verse is what it looks like. Unbelievable, man. The way they use comic elements in the movie and how it made sense and was, described, really, really neat. And I absolutely loved Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which brings us to number 2. And it was down to 3 movies. And the number 2 spot is 2 movies that got the number 1 spot in the second half of the year. The Hate You Give and Blind Spotting. I talked about these movies at length in my top 10 of the second half. Both kind of focal point of the movies kind of center around a police shooting. And just the way these movies talk about race, about police, and minority relationships, police brutality, for blind spotting, gentrification, and like old Oakland versus new Oakland. Just they take conversations that you've heard in lots of movies and spin them on their head in a way where you sit there and you're like, wow. And the material is accessible for everyone, man. These movies aren't just targeted at any specific audience. You can go into these movies that tell a very, very specific urban, Black story. And it's a story that you can connect with no matter who you are, because it's a human story. And they're just, it's so well, both of them are so well executed. You feel everything you're supposed to feel in these movies. I still think Blind Spotting is, it's sad that it's not getting recognized at these award shows. It's really one of the best films of the year. And then take Amanda Sennberg's uh, view from, you get two adults versus a kid in high school talking about these conversations. She's amazing, and The Hate You Give, just as impactful. It's why it shares the number 2 spot with Blind Spotting. I just love these two movies. I mean, like I said, one of my favorite scenes of the year is Daveed Diggs's rap performance at the end of the movie. I mean, just things that really connect and hit home. I love these two movies, and that brings us to number 1. And I said it the minute I saw the movie. I said, best movie I've seen all year. Year was only like 2 months in, but still. And then when we got to the end of the first half, I was like, this is the best movie of the first half, and I think it'll probably be the best movie of the entire year. And for me, it most certainly is Black Panther. Yes, dude, this movie. I saw this in the middle of an insane work stretch. So tired and very little sleep. I was nervous I might like doze just from physical exhaustion. In this movie, it energized me. I was ready to like go run a mile or 2 or 3 or 4, just I was ready to do things, man. This movie just got me so excited, so happy. I was enriched in every bit of the story. The visual effects are spectacular. It's just the Wakanda is amazing, man. Like, I just want to spend more time in that city. The structure of the architecture and style and design of it all, it's unbelievable. It's like you got like these like primitive kind of concepts with modernized technology concepts because they've never been touched by the outside world, so they kind of blend together. It's so unique. It's visually stunning. Ryan Coogler did an excellent job building out this world and delivering a movie that was very impactful. It talks about plenty of the conversations that we were just talking about there. Blind Spotting and The Hate You Give, and just things about all these different things and everything it decides to talk about within a superhero movie, and it's all effective. It all really works. It's a Ryan Coogler movie, start to finish. You get one of the best performances of the year from Michael B. Jordan with Killmonger. I mean, just everybody in this movie is wonderful. It's so nice to just watch a movie like this and be entertained by its action, wowed by its beauty. The score is spectacular. I love the way that they brought in, African drums and a lot of African culture, and the way they kind of mixed it to develop Wakanda in this world. It's just wow. And then you give, Black Panther, a lot of people say probably has the worst arc in the movie. But you watch it, man. I just watched it again. Like, he has some real big moments, and it does kind of build him. I think there's maybe a better way you could have approached it, but it really builds it king by the end of the movie. And I loved Black Panther so much. It was, of course, going to be my number 1 movie of the year. We have made it. New Year's Day. The best and worst is all wrapped up, man. Our top 10, A Simple Favor, Upgrade, Mission Impossible, Fallout, Aquaman, Avengers Infinity War, American Animals, A Quiet Place, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a tie at number 2 with Blind Spotting and The Hate You Give, and number 1, Black Panther. That's my movie of the year. I really hope it gets nominated first and then, possibly wins the Oscar. It would be spectacular to see that happen, and I hope it does. That's it, man. That's all C-Man's got to say. I've been talking for a hell of a long time. So now, man, it's your turn, man. Hit those comments down below. Let me know anything you're thinking. I want to know what your top 10 is. Give me your best and your worsts. Anything you want to talk about, hit them in the comments. If you enjoyed the stream and were watching along afterwards, please give me some thumbs up. I will also break these down into individual videos too, so that we can have the appropriate background. I figured it would be a good way. We never officially sent off the bedroom, so I said, you know what, let's wrap up the year, close the year out where it all started. Right here, and it was a lot of fun to give you my favorite things and least favorite things from the year, my top 10s and my 5s. I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you all enjoyed. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. Hit that little alert bell so that you get alerts every time I make videos. I love interacting with you guys. I had a really, really fun time today. As always, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I'm the C-Man, and I'm signing off. Peace.